This is our last web conference. Good evening, Denise. Okay, can you see the presentation? Okay, thank you. Well, I was telling you, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our last web conference of the course International Business Management. My name is Angela Suarez, and I'm the course director. The presentation plan of this web conference, first of all, some key features of international business operability. Then we're going to talk about modes of foreign trade in international business. After, we're going to see operational challenges and risk management. Then strategic considerations for operability. Finally, benefits of international business operability and some conclusions. We're going to remember that when we talk about international business, we're talking about exchange of goods, sorry, of exchange of goods, services, capital, technology across national borders. It is important because the international business enables companies to expand markets, increase profits, and access resources unavailable domestically. That's why we talk about the open markets that we have in our countries. The scope that we have when we talk about this international business includes exporting, importing, licensing, franchising, joint ventures, wholly owned subsidiaries, some turnkey projects, and management contracts. So when we talk about international business, we don't talk only about exports and imports, but about a range of opportunities that we have to deal with the international market. First of all, we talk about the key features of international business operability. And we have 5 here, key features. The first one is the cross-border transactions. Those transactions involves movement of goods, services, and capital between countries. So those are the transactions when we considering the movement of goods or services or capital across the borders. The second key feature is the cultural diversity. As we've been talking about some intercultural elements, cultural diversity necessitates adaptation to different cultural norms and business practices. As you can see, and you've seen this in the whole program that you've been studying the last years, one of the main elements that we have in our courses are the consideration of multiculturality, the cultural diversity, and how important is for us if we want to work in international business to know about the international cultures, the cultures that are different everywhere in every country. And even if we speak the same language, the culture is going to be different. So the cultural diversity is a key feature and key element in the process of any international transaction that we want to deal with. Another key feature is the multiple currencies. We need to be aware about the multiple currencies. Sometimes, and most of the times, we just deal with US dollars and maybe euros, but every time when we consider these topics of international business, we need to be aware that we're going to deal with the multiple currencies. Maybe the international ones that are more common in the language are the US dollars and euros, but when you're going to make a transaction, you need to know the value of the US dollar or euro, but also the value of the national currency to know exactly the change that you're going to have and the value that you're going to deal with. So this requires managing exchange rates, risks, and currency fluctuations. So we don't need just to know the value of euro or dollar, but also those from the country where we want to deal with. Next, we have the political and legal complexities. As I've been telling you in this course, and of course in the previous one about the negotiation strategies, there are some elements in the international arena that they don't depend on our decision and our management, but they're going to have a very important influence in the development of our business if we're considering working cross borders. So when we talk about political and legal complexities, is we talk about navigating different legal systems, regulations, political risks such as instability or policy change. So this is very important for us to consider and to be aware when we're working on international business. And the last one talks about the extended supply chain coordination across multiple countries with longer and more complex logistics. Logistics in every place are going to be different. Of course, there are some elements of the culture that can force the way how logistics work. Excuse me. Some countries they might use more technology, they're going to be faster, and there are some others that maybe bureaucracy are going to influence and make the logistics very slow. So there are different conditions depending on the place where we want to deal with and work with. So those elements are very important. That's why we're considering them as the key features on the international business operability. We can see them in every process of negotiation, the processes that we have to go through, the real international business, not just about the planification when we're planning how are we going to do, when we're dealing with the process of negotiation, but also when we're in the process of the development of the negotiation or the or when we're moving the goods and the capital, and are those elements that are going to be very important in the success or the failure in our process of international business. Next, we have some other elements that are very important, which are the modes of foreign trade in international business. Those modes talk about exporting and importing that are like the main ones that we know. That they mean, or the explanation is that importing or exporting, we produce goods domestically and we ship them abroad or bring them goods from abroad for domestic consumption. Exporting is when we produce those goods domestically and we want to sell them, send them abroad, or importing is when we bring those goods to our country to the domestic consume. So this is the first mode. The second one talks about licensing and franchising. I'm sorry. Some advantages and limitations that we have in exporting and importing. The advantages is the easiest and least risky mode of entry and requires less capital investment. And is the mode that we use the most, and in the one we're more we have more knowledge about maybe. Some limitations, the physical movement, of course, because we have to deal with logistics. It involves transportation, costs, tariffs, and regulatory compliance. But, well, about regulatory compliance, even if we're going to move capital or if we're trying to sell services, we have to look at the policy and regulation. But of course, when we talk about exporting or importing, we depend on the modes of transportation, the costs that they're going to increase, of course, the tariffs that we have to pay. So those are elements that we have to consider in this element of exporting and importing. The next one is the licensing and franchising, which allows foreign firms to produce or sell products using the company's brand or technology. We're very well known about licensing and franchising because we have so many franchise here in our country. The most known, maybe we can see restaurants like McDonald's or coffee places like Starbucks. Like those are the more common that we have, but of course most of the labels that we know um, are known through this process of licensing and franchising. And the last one is about the joint ventures and wholly owned subsidiaries. This is a collaborative or fully owned foreign operation for deeper market penetration and control. Of course, this is going to work with bigger companies. So in the way that we see here is like if we go from small to bigger. When we're a small business, a medium business, and we want to bring our product abroad, we're going to export. If we're interested on getting any products from the international market, we're going to import. And we can do it very easily if we know the rules. But when we talk about licensing and franchising, that's going to work with a well-known label. So it's not any company, but because of course the value of the franchise, the license, depends on the knowledge that the consumer have about the label, the name of the product. So, for example, if you go anywhere in the world and someone talks about Burger King, McDonald's, Starbucks, you're going to have immediately the idea of what is it. But maybe if you go to China and you talk about Toto or crepes and waffles, it's going to be more difficult because those are not very known everywhere. The labels in the rest of the world, maybe in America, in South America, in Central America, even probably in the United States. But if we go to the east of the world, if we go to Europe, maybe they don't have knowledge about those marks, those labels. And last one is the joint ventures and wholly owned subsidiaries, because it, of course, is going to mean that if we want to get a joint venture or a subsidiary, of course, is going to be from a very well-known company. Of course, that they're selling is the name and the recognition that they have in the world. So those are the modes of foreign trade in international business that we have to be aware of. And now the operational challenges and the risk management. First of all, what we have here first of all, we talk about the political risks. What are the political risks? There is no way for us to export to a country that has some internal problems, social or political problems, because that is going to affect our business. When we talk about political risk, we talk about instability, policy shifts, or civil unrest that can disrupt the operations, mitigated by diversification and local partnership. So, for example, the easiest example that we can have very close to us is Venezuela. Of course, Venezuela has been ruled for the last 20, 25 years by some political views that are very extreme in the support of businesses, in the support of economical growth, and of course in the support of private property. So at the beginning, when Hugo Chavez was elected as president, Venezuela was one of the main um, partners in international commerce for Colombia. Of course, most of the Colombian companies exported to Venezuela, and of course, Colombian companies imported a lot of products from Venezuela. The exchange was very rich in that time. But when the policy changed, of course, the conditions of payment for those exportations was changed. So the risk improved, increased, and of course, the Colombian companies couldn't continue exporting to Venezuela. So that means a political risk. When there is a change of rule, when there is a change of conditions for the companies to work and to deal with international commerce, to deal with currency, to deal with transferring money, of course, it's going to be more difficult for the for the people and the companies to continue working with those countries. So we can see that there are some countries in the world that they have living some internal problems, social problems, political problems, that they have kind of instability. So they mean that they have a higher risk for us as business people to fail in the process of exporting, importing, or doing business with them. So those are the political risks that we need to be aware of because those are very important in the process of any negotiation, any business that we want to develop in any country. So there are some international, how could I say, like lists or tables that show the level of risk of every country when we talk about international business. And there is that's a tool that we have to use, analyze and read about the political risks that any country represents for businesses. So it is very important for us to consider those indicators that we can find in internet from international organizations that they show and they have these elements of evaluation of risk from from different countries. Operational risks. Well, those operational risks talk about the supply chain disruptions. So sometimes, for example, if the country uses to suffer from um, natural disasters, we have to be aware of that. Maybe the time of the year when the natural disasters are more common, because if we've seen, for example, in the Caribbean the last week, there was a hurricane that changed a lot the life of the people of the island. For us, it's something different, but for them, they're used to do. They're used to live that. So those operational risks, we need to learn more about the country and to know what kind of operational risks they're usually to suffer, like the supply chain disruption, the natural disasters, managed through contingency planning and backup supplies. For example, if we know that in the second semester of the year, the Caribbean used to face some natural disasters, of course, we're going to consider in that time of the year not to plan any export or any movement of goods through the country, because of course we're going to have some troubles with insurances, with the quality of the products and how are they going to arrive at the place. So those operational risks are normal, but we need to be aware of that. For example, with the metro that is coming from China, there was an accident, and the metro wagons, they had to go back to the fabric because they were in an accident, so they have to fix them again. So those are operational risks that we're going to face in the process of moving. So, of course, is more common when we're moving goods to other places. Even it works on exporting and, of course, importing. Importing, why? Because sometimes, for example, in our country, we have those natural disasters. In this weekend, there was, of course, a movement of the earth because of the floods, I think, because of the rain. In the in the in the way from the center of the country through Santander, but this is the way to communicate the center of the country with the north coast, which means that a lot of trucks have traveled to go through that way, and they have to increase the costs to trying to go through other ways to get to the north coast, where we have most of the ports. So those are operational risks that are developed or are a consequence of a natural disaster, for example, in this case. Legal risks. Legal risks, compliance with local laws to avoid penalties, and requires continuous monitoring and legal expertise. Of course, the law is in evolution, is changing. So when we start the process to negotiate, to make some deals with another country, with another company, we need to be aware what type of legal risks we're going to face, not only from the side of our government and our laws and regulations, but also from the other country, because the law is always changing, the law is always in the process of evolution. So we need to be aware of the conditions that we're facing in this moment, but probably to know about what trends to be the future, how the future may change those legal risks, those regulations. So it is very important for us to consider that we also were facing legal risks that maybe uh, they're we're going to face some changes on regulations, and we need to be always updated on regulations for imports and exports. And finally, the currency risks, which mean the exchange rate fluctuations that impact pricing and profitability. Hedging strategies such as forward contracts and options help manage these risks. So, of course, when we're dealing with these international transactions, we're not going to be to get the knowledge about the uh, exchange rate of the currency for today or the next week, but we have to analyze when is going to be when we're going to get the payment, or when we're going to make the payment. And we have to be aware the trends of the currency, because in those situations we can lose or we can get more. So it's very important, because sometimes, as you can see, maybe when you're up to date with the news, we have some changes on the currency because of because those political risks, the political change is going to affect the currency, the trend of the currency, and of course, that's going to affect our business. For example, our country is the best example right now. Why? Because in the last 3 years, we've had a different type of government that wants to change all the rules for everything. So we're facing some legal risks. Maybe we're increasing regulations in some things and decreasing regulations in another things. Political risks. We have a president that every time that he writes something in X in social media, there is a reaction about what he says. And those reactions are political, economical, and of course, those economical affects the currency, the exchange of currency. So the price of dollar versus peso versus dollar. So, and operational risks, because of course in our country we have so many different natural disasters that we can face, and also we have some other operational risks that are related with the political risk, which means the security in some regions of the world, of the country. So if we're importing something that comes through Buenaventura, one of the risks is the quality of the way from Buenaventura to Bogota, for example, if it comes to the center of the country. Another one might be security. If there is any trouble on security, maybe the way is closed, the route is closed. So because we have some people that are, I don't know, they're closing the road because they need to ask for something to the government. So there is no way for the trucks to cross some places. So those are the operational risks linked to the political risks. So in our country right now, we have like we represent a higher risk for the companies to invest, for the companies to export to Colombia, and of course for the companies to buy goods and of course services and get capital from our country, because we represent the whole four risks right now: political risks, operational risks, legal risks, and currency risks, because there is no stability. When we have a government that doesn't guarantee the stability and security, we represent a higher risk for any business. In our case, national or international, but in the case of international business, of course, we are getting in a higher risk um, evaluation or consideration in the international market. Next, we have the strategic considerations for operability. We have three considerations. The first one is about efficiency and competitiveness. Efficiency and competitiveness in international business invest in advanced management techniques, technology, and a skilled workforce to improve efficiency and compete globally. So efficiency and competitiveness are very important in any process of international negotiation, because that's the trend in the international market. That's what the international market is looking for business, that of course they invest on technology and different techniques, and that they have skilled workforce working on the process to get the product or the service. And of course, the efficiency, that is going to be an efficient process, and that is going to answer the needs of the global market, the global consumer. And if you go to any sector of the economy, you're going to find that, of course, the trend in any element of the market is going to look, or you're going always to look for efficiency and competitiveness. How are you going to compete with the other companies that offer some similar products in the international market? Are you going to show that your product show some efficiency, or that your product has different elements that is going to make it more competitive in the market regarding the competition that you have. Those are very important elements that you need to consider. The second one talks about value creation and innovation, leveraging firm-specific advantages like knowledge, technology, and innovation that are transferable internationally. Sometimes we link innovation with technology, but not always means the same, because we can innovate uh, without being like the most technological advance in the market. Innovation means that the product, your creation, your service has something different from the average in the market, something that makes it really different, innovative, that make it like more attractive to the consumer, that has a plus from the competitors. And value creation, of course, is innovation, means that you give that your product has a higher value compared with the competition. So sometimes innovation, we can innovate in very basic elements without having like the latest technology. And that's very important to be aware of. Not always innovation means the plus of technology. Innovation may be the same product, but with a different or an additional use, but something added that is going to make a plus in the use of the consumer. For example, if we talk about a good, or also in a service that is a plus compared with the competition that you have. The third strategy consideration is the market entry strategies, choosing appropriate modes of entry based on resources availability, risk tolerance, and market conditions. So those considerations for operability are very important, because we think about efficiency and competitiveness, of course, is linked to our company and our product or service or capital. The second, the value creation and innovation, of course, it depends basically on the element that we want to go through the process of international business. And the market entry strategy. How are we going to get into the new market? How do we how are we prepared? And the knowledge that we have about the market, that we're going to go through we're getting through the big door, the main door. We're getting into the market, but through the main door. So, of course, we need to be aware of the risks that we were talking about before. We have to know a lot about the market considerations and conditions, how the market works, and what's the possibility that we have to compete, how innovative is our product, and of course, how are we going to get this share of the market. So the strategy that we designed to get into, like through marketing, the use of logistics, how are we going to be very efficient, and that we're facing all those risks that we may have, excuse me, how are we going to face them and to go through them without affecting the operation that we are developing. So that's very important when we're thinking about the operation. Exactly. Before, we were thinking about the planning, we were thinking about the country that we want to choose, the market where we want to go. But when we talk about operability, we have to go through the reality that we're facing. But of course, to face this reality, this operability, we need to get a really good background about the market that we're getting in, the culture, the risks. So we're going to show that our product is going to be competitive, that we have an efficient mode of production and transportation and logistics to get to the consumer, that our product is different, is offering something different to the consumer, and of course that we have a clear strategy to get into the market with good elements to be successful. Benefits of international business operability. Of course, that's a successful. Why is it? Why do we have a benefit from this operation? Of course, what's going to happen? First of all, foreign exchange earnings supports national economy by earning foreign currency from imports and development. Of course, if we're going to export or import, that's going to affect the national gross product, and of course, it's going to affect the economy. Why? Because if we are a strong company and we're importing or exporting, it means that we're getting strong, and of course that our company needs employees, and of course that we produce benefits for the people, that we move the economy. So that means we have future. So the foreign exchange earnings are going to be good for the company and also for the country. Resource optimization. Countries specialize in producing goods efficiently and trade surplus with others, enhancing global productivity. Of course, this is like the consequence of the international competition. When we have so many competitors from all over the world, the result is that we as a company, as a producer, we are forced to offer a high quality product. We need to improve the standards of quality. And of course, that means that we're going to have this resource optimization, because we need to get always better, to get better, to get in a higher rank of quality, in a higher rank of competitiveness in the global market. And of course, that means that the sector, that the economical sector is getting always better, more efficient, more competitive. The products are going to be a higher quality. And every time you're looking for some improvement, for the improvement of the quality of the product or the service, because of course the market is always asking for better things, better services, better products, and with more benefits for the people. So the resource optimization is a global result of this international business operability. The third is the growth and employment. I was talking about the foreign exchange earnings, also about the growth and employment, because access to larger markets enables scale growth and job creation. The company that stays local, it's very difficult for this company to grow and to offer more jobs. But if the company has a national operation, but also starts with the international projection, it means that it's going to need more employees, that is going to offer more jobs. That's why a stable economy, stable policy, stable security is going to lower the risk, and of course is going to give more opportunity for the business to grow and to face the opportunities of the international market. So that's very important for us to be clear that we need very good conditions for the local companies to be able to grow, to offer jobs to the people, and of course to move the economy. So it is very important, and those are also benefits from this operability of the international business. And the last one, the government support. International businesses often receive financial incentives and concessions from governments due to their economic importance. So there are some important credit lines that are offered for special banks, for example, Bancoldex, that are very that they face or they go just through the export international businesses that they want to be part of this global market. So there are special lines of credit design for these types of businesses and these type of companies. And of course, the government is going to support. Why? Because we were saying that in the first one. If we have a company that is starting to export and that has a future on exporting, of course, the government is going to help the company to grow, to offer, to demand more jobs, more employees, to move the economy, and to bring more money to the country. So, of course, the government is going to support the international business. I don't know if you have any questions at the moment. I'm trying to speak slow to explain. This is like short explanation or conclusion about why international, what are the main elements that we have to consider when we talk about international business and management, because management is how we manage the operation. We're studying international business, but we have to learn about negotiation. We have to learn about logistics. We need to know about the economy and the management of the company. But of course, we need to know about languages. We need to know about the countries. There are so many elements that that we need to learn and to know about when we talk about international business. And this short web conference uh, is like the short explanation of the result of the international business. If you go through any process of international business, what are the elements that you need to consider that you have to face? When we talk about operability, is just the one of the elements of the development of the activity of the international business that we're facing. Sometimes we talk about planning, we talk about starting, we talk about the process of negotiation, but when we see it like from outside. But when we talk about operability, it's just the reality. How operates the international business? How operates the process of exports or imports or franchising? What are the risks that I'm going to face? What are the problems that I'm going to face? How am I going to be prepared for those situations? Because that's very important. So the successful operability in international business requires the understanding of complex environments, managing diverse risks, and strategically choosing modes of foreign trade. In this short paragraph, we have so many ideas. Understanding the complex environments when we talk about the different type of risks that we're going to face, and how do we have to analyze the counterpart in the other country to see if it's going to be a high risk operation or if it's a low risk operation. But we need to face it through the time, not just right now how it's going to be, but maybe consider, okay, the situation now is not the best one, but the project is going to go through 5 years. But in the next 5 years, the situation trends to be better, to improve, so to be more stabilized. So those are the elements that we have to analyze. Not only being in the moment just right now, how it is. No, we have just to project in the time and to analyze how has been in the last time. For example, for now, we're not going to consider any future in Venezuela because it's uncertain. what is going to happen in that country. So we have to look for different markets that are showing more stability in the future. Managing diverse risks. Of course, the political, the security, the natural disasters. Natural disasters, but we have some tools to analyze how often those natural disasters are happening, how often do they happen, because sometimes there are natural disasters that are going to be just one every 100 years, but there are some others like hurricanes that they have like a season every year. So those are the elements that we have to understand and to face. And to choose modes of foreign trade, of course, it depends of the type of negotiation and business that we want to deal with, and to analyze which is the more suitable for the situation that we want to face. Equipping businesses with knowledge of culture, legal, financial, and operational aspects is essential for thriving in global markets. Maybe when we consider just to deal with the national market, with national production, it's going to be easier because we have more knowledge about the national market. Even sometimes we have some mistakes because we don't understand and um, we don't expect some changes and we fail. But in the case of international business, we have to get knowledge from different other elements that we don't consider when we think in a local market. When we think on international market, of course, the knowledge on culture, traditions, it is very important for us to know, because the culture is not going just to be an influence on the process of negotiation, but also what's the profile of the consumer. It depends on the traditions. How am I going to develop my marketing campaign? Because I'm not going to face any trouble in the use of my language, and the translation maybe is going to be rude. So there are so many elements in the culture, just in culture, that we have to consider in different process of international business, from the planning to the operation. Legal, of course, because we need to be updated with the legal requirements, with our regulations in every single step in our process. Financial, because of course we need to know about the currency, the economy, how safe it's going to be for us to send some products and be sure that you're going to get the payment for that. So those are elements that we really need to consider in this process. And operational aspects are essential, of course, because we were talking about logistics and the risks that we have, because again, we go through the risks that we have in those natural disasters, or maybe how the culture is going to influence the process of logistics, maybe the bureaucracy, how many uh, maybe the bureaucracy is going to be a trouble in the times that we're going to manage in the process of in the logistics. In some countries, maybe the logistics when when the product arrives to the port is going to be easier to get out of it, but in some other countries the bureaucracy takes longer. Or maybe you need to get some help and you need to hire someone from the country to help you with that bureaucracy. So those are different elements, details, that when we talk about the operation in international business, of course, are going to make the difference. And those tiny elements are going to touch the final cost. So you have to consider all those tiny elements in the final cost, in the projection that you're doing, to be aware that at the end of the whole operation, you're going to be benefits from it, that is safe the invest that you're doing. So that's very important for us. Sometimes we go through them very fast. We don't analyze very well, but there are some tiny elements in the process of the operation of the international business that are going to be basic on the success or the failure of negotiation, the international business that we're dealing with. Well, thank you very much. I would like to know if you have any doubts. I hope it's been clear. I want to share some information about the program that I'm sending some information on the forums, the course forum, and of course the activity forum about some activities that are going to be developed uh, mm, in the second half of this month of November. So first of all, the 20th of November, we're going to have the CIPAS building business in Ekasen. I don't know if any of you have been in any of them, but this CIPAS is a bilingual CIPAS when in an alliance of a teacher from international business and one teacher from Minville, they talk about building business somewhere in the world. This time in November is Dubai. It's very they take very interesting places. So this time is in Dubai. It's going to be November the 20th at 6:30 p.m. I'm going to share with you all the information. So if you're interested, it will be very nice for you to participate because it's another activity that is whole in English. So you can participate and you can share your ideas and you can learn about because it's very interesting about building business and doing business in Dubai. That information I'm going to share with you tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Until now, I've been sharing the information about the link class. The link class is a synchronic class that is with an international teacher that is going to share with us some knowledge about something on international business. In this case, it's smart strategies on international business, big data negotiation, and value chains. So it is very interesting. The information basically is in Spanish. So you're going to have this information in Spanish in your forums. I think between tonight and tomorrow night, I'm going to complete to share this information with you. And this link class is going to be developed the next 27th of November from 6:30 to 8:10 p.m. Those are very interesting activities where you can learn from other teachers and other experiences. And this link class is with an international teacher, and she comes from Mexico, if I'm not. Yes, invitada doctora Clara González, docente de la Universidad Anáhuac Cancún y consultora empresarial en México. So those are the news that we have for you today and that we're going to be developing through this month. You're going to have access to that information in your course forms, so there is no trouble. Yes, teacher Javier.
Hello there, Professor Angela and dear students. I just want to take 1 minute from your class just to let you know, guys, that tomorrow I will be sending the invitation for our second CPAS. This CPAS is super important because we are going to talk about the simulator. I mean, a complete hour talking about the decisions you have to make in the simulator. So a big part of you being successful in this task is being there. So please, I'm going to send the invitation directly to your campus. So don't miss the CPAS because it's super, super important. So you get important information about the simulation. That's it. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor Javier. It's very important for you to participate in the CPAS because we have a deadline on the simulator to take the decision, to make the decision, and to get the results for the document that you have to handle at the end of the activity. Remember that you have to work as a team and that you need to work with your classmates. It is very important, and also it is very important for you to read carefully the guide and the rubric, because sometimes there are some things said on the guide and that the rubric is not going to mark. So it is very important, please, to read carefully those documents and to go to the CPAS, okay? So do you have any questions by now? Is everything clear? You can write down on the chat. Thank you, Denise. Yes, please. You have to be in touch with your classmates. It is very important and there is no excuse. You've been since August working together, and it is important, it's imperative, as Professor Javier says, to contact your classmates for this task with time, to do it on time, please. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Professor Javier, for your participation. Then we're going to meet on CPAS, and you can ask anything that you need through Teams, okay? Thank you very much, and all of you have a good night. Bye-bye.